that have not been sent to the counties. This fight between the National Assembly and the Senate should come to an end, Mr. Speaker. When we came up with a bill on conditional grants, and the National Assembly comes up with a framework, what does that tell us? Two elephants are fighting, who will suffer the grass? So the people in the counties who are supposed to be benefiting from the conditional grants will not benefit from them unless we end this thing. And now we are going into the next financial year, yet services which are supposed to be rendered in the last financial year have not been rendered, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is why on an annual basis, the National Assembly will come up with a supplementary budget on every given time. I think we have come of age, Mr. Speaker, as a nation with very intelligent and educated leaders. We can be able to develop budgets that do not require supplementary at every given time to fit interest. Number three, Mr. Speaker, I want to reiterate on this issue of concurrence. I'm glad that at least as a Senate, we have an opportunity to go through this budget policy statement. But in terms of concurrence of bills, I always support judiciary. But in this case, the decision which was rendered by the Court of Appeal, really overruling even the decision of the previous Supreme Court in terms of concurrence will kill this parliament. I'm aware, and I want to reiterate that there is a Huduma bill. And that Huduma bill is very dangerous, Mr. Speaker. It is extremely dangerous. Because what will happen is that it will convert all immigration officers into NIMs. How dare you say that a passport is a primary document? It is not a primary document. We know that what is a primary document is a national ID and the birth certificate. But now when you come in and you add a passport, then it means that although it's a primary document, it is okay for it to keep on changing numbers. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know in your time of traveling, and you've traveled all over the world, you probably exhausted about 3 or 4 passports. You have not maintained the same number. I think we need to go to a time when we can be able to really look at everything. And the reason why I'm raising that issue of the Duma bill, Mr. Speaker, is because it will affect the budget. It will be part of this budget. And there's a lot of money there. So with all this money, which the National Treasury is saying we are going to raise, you are going to raise a lot of money, pay debts, but kill counties. I'm here to defend devolution, and this is why I will not be supporting this budget policy statement, because I cannot support a policy that kills small businesses. We want to be progressive. We do not want a situation whereby everything in this country is all about the Benjamins, it's all about a few people, the bourgeoisies. What about the small people that we talk about? The only time we'll be able to attain universal health care is if we are open enough, ensure that when we are building hospitals, it is not controlled by the Ministry of Health here. That function is devolved back to the county governments. Allow the county governments to be able to build those hospitals, fund them. I want the Chair of Finance to go and tell Treasury to find a framework to release the conditional grants which they are holding, even if Parliament has been unable to come up with a bill. Because in the decision of the court, it said, come up with a process of how you send that money. Let us follow the law. The law was designed to be able to help us remain in the course. No one is above the law in this country. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I reject it completely.
Thank you. Senator Faria.
Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support the budget policy statement. Mr. Speaker, but I have a couple of concerns and some recommendations as well. Mr. Speaker, in terms of revenue targets, we have, in this House, we've dealt with 5 budgets. And Mr. Speaker, in all the 5 budget cycles, we have never met the revenue targets, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, my question is, why do we always get it wrong, Mr. Speaker? Because if, you know, when you, where I worked before and I've done a lot of budgets, Mr. Speaker, the history informs the future of budgets. and of course you stretch yourself a little bit so that you're not lazy in terms of achieving your targets. But at the same time, you should not always get it wrong. And when you're also budgeting for the same revenue, you should have some conservatives that takes care of the excesses that you always project. That is never my. The problem I have with having excessive budget projection is that, revenues are matched with expenditure. And therefore, when you have a very highly over projected revenue, it means you'll also have a very highly over projected expenditure. And Mr. Speaker, that also is part of the reason why probably part of the debt comes about. So, Mr. Speaker, as we budget, we need to be sensitive about that. Mr. Speaker, from this statement, I see that agriculture and source of diaspora funds have continued funding our economy. Mr. Speaker, when you realize that some of the sectors are the ones that increase your output and increase the revenue that is generated by this country and increases the GDP of this country, then I think we need more investment in those sectors. And as you will see, I will continue to explain that some of the sectors got less money this time, while there has been a decrease. In terms of, like if you check, Mr. Speaker, the proposed ceiling for agriculture, rural and urban development sectors have decreased by 15.6%, Mr. Speaker. My only hope is that decrease from the national government has gone to counties. If it hasn't gone to counties, what that means is that the sector that generates more revenue gets less allocation in terms of the budget, then we are likely to generate less, and we are likely to not meet our target for revenue generation. And we need to be very, very careful on how we handle that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, of course, as you realize, we are living in a very, very hard times because of the COVID-related problems. Our revenues are likely to be, with Omicron and all these other problems that are upcoming. I hope we will not lock down this economy, because from what I have seen, we have locked the whole world for for almost 18 months, but still diseases keep on increasing from a country to another country. It is high time we evaluated, and I also urge Kenyans to take more vaccines, because that will also enable us to have a more healthier nation that is more productive, that supports the growth of this economy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the county allocation as by the PPS, as per the PPS, proportional increase to the revenue in terms of the allocation of revenue to the counties has decreased from 22% in the financial year 2017-2018 to 17% in the financial year 2022-2023, despite the fact that due to the handshake agreement, when the revenues stalemate came, there was an increase of 50 billion to the kitty of the counties. Still, we are underperforming by a whole 5%. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that is not acceptable, and we should, the revenue, if we were able to generate more money, counties should get more money, Mr. Speaker. Then the other issue is around, Mr. Speaker, pending bills, which has increased to 102.69 billion, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I always speak about pending bills, because pending bills have very significant impact on how our economy grows, in how the businesses grow, and in how the GDP of this country grows. Mr. Speaker, if you owe counties owe more money to people, if national government owe money to people, their ability not only to invest is impacted, but also they cannot finance their debt. And Mr. Speaker, that will result in many small business or mid-term, the smaller and the medium-sized businesses to fall. Mr. Speaker, the more we have businesses falling, the more we have unemployment, the more we will have revenue shortfall, the more we will have investors not interested in this country in terms of investment, and the more we will become uncompetitive compared to people in the other, our counterpart in this region. Mr. Speaker, and then the other issue is around the PPS proposing that the county should be given 370 billion. Mr. Speaker, if you do not factor in inflation, what that means is the money that the counties are disposed to spend will be less than what they had last year by the percentage of inflation. So, Mr. Speaker, this House should not accept the same amount, not now, not in the future, because inflation, always affect our ability to spend. So I am glad that I am also a member of the Finance Committee. I am happy that we are proposing 35% of the revenue of the last audited account, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other issue I wanted to comment about is the commitment fees that we always have. My question is, in terms of money borrowed but not utilized, if you have no target for that money, why borrow? Because borrowing is costly, and if the amount of the percentage, not only do you have two things. Number one, the commitment fee charge, and then a lost opportunity in terms of the sector that could have used that money was not given that money. So there will be a lost opportunity in terms of the opportunity cost of that other sector that would have grown with that increment and increasing the revenue of generating more revenue is not given that money. So there is not only the real cost of commitment fees, but also what we call opportunity cost, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I always talk about is, national tax policy. And I'm glad my chairman also mentioned this. When you have a national compliance of the businesses that exist, there is some stability in the economy because people are able to predict what next, increment or otherwise is all about. And not only that, it covers a wider spectrum of issues that you can cover so that you generate more revenue for the government. And then also the predictability of that taxes. Mr. Speaker, this also increases investment. People who are interested in investing in your country because they know exactly what to expect. But as it stands right now, even the compliance level of our business people might be lower, and they might be charged by KRA for reasons that is not their fault, because they don't know. They don't know what to expect. These taxes keep on changing with every budget. Tracking that taxes becomes very hard. And you might not be able to pay taxes, not because you did not want to pay, but because there is no predictability in terms of how that taxes should go on, Mr. Speaker. And it becomes even much more, even harder for the taxman also to monitor in terms of likes for likes comparison. So right now it is a bit haphazard, and I think that needs to be corrected. Mr. Speaker, in terms of, when there is a depression, I agree with most senators have alluded to, you reduce taxes, because taxes When you reduce taxes, you increase the disposable income for businesses and for individuals. And that encourages investment, and that also encourages, once the investors invest in new ventures and in new innovations, more funds is likely to be generated out of that. Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, as a result of more investment, there'll be more employment and more money available for investment. And Mr. Speaker, the other thing that I want to also reiterate is the fact that this House, and specifically Finance Committee, always makes a very good recommendation in all the BPS that we've handled from the inception of this House up to the time of the current, sitting, the current year. For the last 5 years, the Finance Committee and this House have made very good recommendations that would have enhanced even the revenue that we were able to generate for this country. But Mr. Speaker, because our recommendations have never been taken into consideration, those opportunities have been lost. And Mr. Speaker, there is no point in wasting our time coming here, making very good recommendations where nobody implements. So I urge our House to be more, and the Speaker and our Finance Chair, to ensure that these recommendations this time have been included in the BPS. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to join my chair in thanking the Secretariat. In terms of the Finance Secretariat, we have very knowledgeable staff, and they have been doing a great job. And I also wish to thank all the other support we get from the Office of the Clerk of the Senate, without whom we would never have been able to do all this great work we have been doing. I thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Senator Gertrude Msuruve.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment on this report. And I want to thank the committee for coming up with this report. And it has done an in-depth report that actually needs to be analyzed in a very sober manner. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the committee because it engaged the key stakeholders. It has not just given a report from the committee itself, but key stakeholders have come on board. The National Treasury has come on board. The Commission on Revenue Authority has come on board, Institute of Certified Accountants, and the Senate Committee. So this is a report that is really engaging. And Honorable Speaker, concerning the observations of the committee, it has come out rightly that the committee has seen that there is projection for the amount of money that should be sent or that should be allocated for the year 2022 to 2023, and it has also observed rightly that the projections need to be achievable. The projections also need to be predictable, Honorable Speaker, because when it comes to those projections, they're going to inform how the county governments will plan their activities. They're going to inform how the county governments will also plan in terms of development, in terms of ensuring that Article 43 of the Constitution concerning the rights of every Kenyan are actually achieved. Honorable Speaker, when you're talking of the developments, we are looking at issues of schools, we are looking at issues of infrastructure, we are looking at issues of health, and we are looking at how development can be achievable. So that, Honorable Speaker, at the end of the day, we don't have people from Mashinani trafficking to cities to look for jobs. The county governments are supposed to entice even the youths to ensure that the youths are not actually moving out of the counties, so that even there's employment, even there's good health, and even there's productivity or production in the counties, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to allocation of budgets, There need to be some reasonable elasticity in terms of the amount of money that is going there, Honorable Speaker. It should not be so rigid because, Honorable Speaker, anything can happen. There are times when calamities befall people in counties, and these calamities are not really, sometimes they're not planned. Like, for example, when a school is on fire and the county governments have to repair their schools and all that, Honorable Speaker, or even in terms of drought, Honorable Speaker, the money that the county governments have are supposed to actually support people. Honorable Speaker, we must remember that we are a Senate, and a Senate that represents the people of these counties, a devolved Senate. So our core mandate is to ensure that money goes mashinani. And I actually agree that money must go mashinani, and the amount of money that is proposed in this report should actually go as it is in the report, Honorable Speaker. And I remember very well, Honorable Speaker, we had a strong debate about 35% of money is going to the counties, Honorable Speaker, and this is one of the key issues that was in the BBI, Honorable Speaker, and I can remember very well the President articulating just very recently that this is one of the musts that must happen, from BBI, that 35% revenue needs to go to the counties. Yes, 35% revenue is going to the counties, but Honorable Speaker, this amount of money is not enshrined in the law, Honorable Speaker. There's need for this money to be enshrined in the law so that services reach wananchi, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we will not rest on our laurels as a Senate if money, reasonable money, is not reaching wananchi, because we are here to serve wananchi. And Honorable Speaker,
order members, consult in Lawtons.
Honorable, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Kenyans must know and must be alive to the fact that the Senate is here to defend Kenyans. The Senate is here to defend the county governments, and money must go mashinani. And the amount of money that is going mashinani, Honorable Speaker, needs to be a reasonable amount of money. And concerning the issue of borrowing, Honorable Speaker, everyone has loans, Honorable Speaker. To come up with any form of development, you must look for strategies. You must look for the capital. You must look for ways of making investment that will generate money. So when it comes to the government borrowing, there's no big issue that the government borrows, Honorable Speaker. But this borrowing should be in wisdom, Honorable Speaker, so that the borrowing also does not cause, suffering to Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that even the amount of money that government borrows, let the money be generative so that it eventually generates money, Honorable Speaker. Money is good when it is borrowed, but if it can generate to you more money, then that is wisdom in actually borrowing, Honorable Speaker. So I want to support this report, Honorable Speaker, and I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that we have a mandate as a Senate to ensure that we are defending counties. We are supporting counties because that is where the Kenyans are, Honorable Speaker. We must defend Wajiko. And Honorable Speaker, even as we talk about this, I just want to articulate something that I'm seeing in Lugari, where I come from, Honorable Speaker. There's some schools that are in deplorable states, Honorable Speaker, and you'll find that some schools are even made of mud. In this time and era, we do not need to have that kind of a school, Honorable Speaker, because Kenya is developed. When you compare Kenya to other countries, you'll find that the development that Kenya has is far above that. And Honorable Speaker, I also remember very well that sometimes, and I remember I paid a courtesy call to a district hospital in Lumakanda, where I come from, and I was really perturbed that when I went to the hospital, I found that the beds were in deplorable state. Even the nurses there, even the doctors there, did not have quarters to live in, Honorable Speaker. When you're talking about health is a devolved function, and money needs to go to counties. And one is good amount of money, but it is also used in a prudent way so that Kenyans can have value for their country, Honorable Speaker. Kenyans have a right to to a share of the cake of this country. So there is need for county governments to ensure that the developing schools, especially ECD, Honorable Speaker, those are schools that have actually been neglected in many county governments, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, even when I went to Lugari, I was really pained because when I went there, Honorable Speaker, I even found that there are some schools without ECD centers. And even those with ECD centers, some of them do not have abolition blocks, Honorable Speaker. And even in those schools, some of them, Honorable Speaker, they have special needs children, but they're just encaged in a room and there's no infrastructure for them, Honorable Speaker. We must be alive to the fact that every Kenyan matters. And every Kenyan, whether a PWD, whether you come from a marginalized community, whether you come from a poor family, you must get your basic rights as enshrined in Article 43 of this Constitution, Honorable Speaker. We are talking about matters water. Honorable Speaker, I want to be very candid on the floor of this House, that there are some places, there are some rural places that do not have water at all, Honorable Speaker. And imagine the importance of water, Honorable Speaker. Without water, you cannot live. You cannot wash your clothes. You cannot prepare food for children. Water is life, Honorable Speaker. But it is unfortunate and it is painful that there are some counties that don't have water, Honorable Speaker. Even in Lugari, where I come from, Honorable Speaker, boreholes have not been sunk, Honorable Speaker. It is the honors of this Senate to ensure that boreholes are sunk in every county, Honorable Speaker, because it is a social economic right that is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 43. It is also a right enshrined in Article 43 that all Kenyans must have the highest attainable standards of health, Honorable Speaker. And it is unfortunate, Honorable Speaker, sometimes women go to give birth. There's no one to help them. The facilities are not there, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, county governments must ensure, when it comes to health also, they train trainers of trainers who will go mashinani and support women, Honorable Speaker. The life of women in mashinani matters. The life of children in mashinani matters, Honorable Speaker. Will not rest until services reach wananchi, Honorable Speaker. And we will also not play the ostrich, Honorable Speaker. When something goes wrong mashinani, we should bring it on the floor of this House. And not only bring it, Honorable Speaker, we must act, Honorable Speaker. Because if we just bring issues on the floor of this House and we are not acting, then we are just a toothless bulldog. We should not be the case, Honorable Speaker, because we are an upper house, Honorable Speaker. As an upper house, I want to support this statement that there is need for more money to be taken mashinani, and even what the President said about 35%, it should be enshrined in law as the President stated during the presidential speech, Honorable Speaker. He was not joking, he was very serious, that there are three issues that need to be factored in. The issue of gender, the issue of the issue of 35%, Honorable Speaker, and also the issue of ensuring that the cake by Kenyans is enjoyed by everyone else, Honorable Speaker, because this is our country. We have no other country to go to, Honorable Speaker. We must ensure that we safeguard our rights. We must ensure we safeguard wananchi. We must ensure we deliver to Kenyans, Honorable Speaker, and that is why we are being paid, Honorable Speaker. I don't want to see a situation where I'm being paid and not delivering services to Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. The people of Lugari must know. Senator Suruve is here to represent them. And I will not rest, Honorable Speaker. We must defend this report, and we must defend that more money should be taken mashinani, Honorable Speaker, because that is what we are mandated to do. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I support.
Thank you. Senator, Mary Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me a chance to add my voice on this motion on the adoption of the report on finance and budget on the budget policy statement. Mr. Speaker, I wish to note the following issues on the budget policy statement. Mr. Speaker, being a member of the Health Committee, I noticed that there is no budget that has been allocated for the implementation of the NHIF bill that we have just passed as a House. This bill was to bring some smile on the faces of Kenyans in terms of health care services. But without a budget for the implementations of these reforms, then I think the Ministry of Treasury is just taking Kenyans back to where we were, because there are no facilities, health facilities that will be built in our counties. There is no budget for recruitment of more healthcare service providers, and we know it has been a very big problem. There is no budget for expansion of the capacity of our KMTC to train middle-level health care workers, and therefore the implementation of these important NHIF reforms will just be there in terms of a white and black, but there is no budget for implementation. Another issue that we saw as a committee on health is that there is no also information on the 50 new level 3 hospitals that are going to be built across the counties. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, seem to marginalize more of our counties. We know many of our counties do not have level 3 health facilities, hospitals within the counties. And with an indication that there is an allocation, a budget allocation for new level 3 hospitals, which are not specifically being targeted to go to marginalized counties, those counties that have not been having these facilities, then this budget policy statement seem to again create more marginalization for our counties. Mr. Speaker, the issue of the Ministry of Education also, there is very little budget in terms of recruitment of more teachers. And we know at the moment, because of the 100% transition rate, our schools are densely populated. And without teachers to handle this population in our public primary and secondary schools, then it means parents are going to pay more for employment of PTA teachers. It means parents are also going to chip in terms of construction of classrooms, construction of laboratories, constructions of abolition blocks, constructions of dining halls for their students. And this means then the issue of saying education is free it will not be the case. Then we shall be paying for more in terms of our secondary school and our primary school school fee. There is also no clarity in the budget policy statement. There is no clarity in terms of capitation for our universities. Many of our universities are already not in a position even to pay statutory deductions, salaries for their employees, and in the budget policy statement, there is no much money also that is going to our higher education institutions. Mr. Speaker, the issue of also expansion of our research institutions. Already we have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. We need to also help our research institutions to be able to grow to a level where they can also study the trends of the pandemic, and also they can be able to help Kenyans in terms of addressing this situation of COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of also pending bills. We know today, as we are speaking, many of our counties owe so many businessmen and businesswomen and our youth a lot of money in terms of services they've already delivered to the counties. I wish the Ministry of Treasury could have stated how they will allocate this money for pending bills, both for the national government and for the county government. The issue of pending bills is killing our business, our business sector in terms of capital, where our business people are not able to provide services again because of the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, the issue of also an increase budget to our county government in terms of agriculture and also livestock. If we have to be secured as a country, we have to invest in food. And that has been one of our four agenda, food security. But without a budget going for agricultural inputs, support for our farmers, support for our livestock keepers, in terms of incentives, in terms of subsidies for the inputs they will need, then it means the Ministry of Agriculture. It means the Ministry of Agriculture is not going to improve food production in this country. Then leaving Kenyans to import food. An importation of food that will definitely means an increase in prices of foods. Mr. Speaker, the issue of water, there is no much increment in terms of the budget going to counties for the development of water infrastructure. Again, Mr. Speaker, many of our young urban growing areas in this country lack water and sanitation sewerage projects. And again, there is no much allocation for those facilities. Mr. Speaker, I think the House needed these concerns, and the committee has really done good work just for highlighting our concern as the House, but I think the House should stand firm on these issues that are affecting many of our counties. I also agree with other speakers that when we support the growth of counties, we shall have growth, supported the growth of the country as a whole. And therefore, I'm very, very reluctant in supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this chance to join the rest of my colleagues in giving my views on the 2022-2023 BPS report by a committee I'm proud to be a member of, a committee on budget and finance, a committee that plays a very crucial role in terms of securing our position as a Senate in fulfilling our key objectives and reason for existence as a House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this year, unlike the previous years, we have considered this report quite early for obvious reasons. that next year is an election year, and therefore, unlike in previous years where we normally do this around February, we are forced to cut short our Christmas break. Ideally, many of us, especially the young people like Ledama and myself, this should be time that we should be spending with our young children. But duty calls, and here we are. I personally believe, perhaps looking through all the list of business that you're supposed to transact as a house, this is the only one that is worth breaking a Christmas holiday for, because it's a very important national duty. It gives direction. The importance of BPS, Mr. Speaker, as has been mentioned by colleagues who have spoken ahead of me, is that it lays the strategic vision for the country in terms of budgeting, and lays the walls and income are supposed to fall within. If you do not pass a proper BPS, Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, then you don't have a budget, because it's upon the implementation of what has been set out in the reports of both houses of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, that the Treasury goes ahead to prepare a budget and submits it to the National Assembly for approval. However, Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that over the years, the report of a Senate Budget and Finance Committee has continuously been ignored by the National Treasury. And I can reflect as far back as from 2013, when this House came into existence, that each year we give very salient recommendations about how our views, because we are equally leaders, just like our colleagues in the National Assembly, and perhaps even with a better global view, because many of the times when you interact with members of the National Assembly, their views are generally tilted towards appreciation of the work done by the national government, and very little of the important role that devolution plays in our country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, on many occasions, you'll find that there'll be a clash of vision and purpose and planning in terms of what the direction the country needs to take, Mr. Speaker. It's important because this report has gone to make a very serious recommendation. You know, over the years, we've become a bit more intelligent in how we handle the work. It's a little bit of what Chinua Achebe told us, that when the birds knew how to fly without perching, then the hunters also had to learn how to shoot without missing. I guess that is what our chairman, our very able chairman, Senator Kibiru, is leading us to do. That because National Treasury continues to ignore the recommendations of the Senate, then we may as well not agree with them from the very onset. And that is what is being, actually the crux of the matter in this report is that we are varying their recommendation of the amount of money that they want to give to counties at 370, which is a stagnation of what was done the previous year. And we were all in this house. We remember very well the battle that we took, the tears that were shed in this house for us to get the county allocation to 370 billion. It's an insult to the intelligence of this house, to the purpose, to all the 10 plus weeks that we spent in this house haggling to push that figure to 370. Therefore, I want to plead with my colleagues that let us make a commitment today that once we pass this report, there is no turning back. If it means that we stick our necks out until it gets to the next administration, actually, that will come in August. In any case, we have passed Kara in the last, I think it was a 2018 financial year, in the month of August, or was it even September? So there'll be no emergency. We must stick to our guns and maintain the position of this BPS, that actually the fair figure to give to our counties is in excess of 500 billion Kenya shillings. Because if you're maintaining that if this budget is growing by 9.2%, then the budget of the counties as well should grow by a figure almost equal. Actually, this is not a figure that as a Committee of Budget and Finance we just plugged out of the blues. It is actually empirically achieved, because we just did an extrapolation and said, okay, you take into consideration inflation, the growth of revenue, and the growth of the overall size of the budget. Because our duty under Article 96 of the Constitution of Kenya is to protect the interest of the counties and their government. How can we say as a House, Mr. Speaker, that we are protecting the interest of counties if we are not sticking firm, picking out obvious errors, such as what is being proposed in this budget policy statement. When Ukuri appeared before us, the position of the Budget and Finance Committee was straight and clear to him that, Mr. Minister, this is nonsense. This one cannot be accepted. Because if you're growing the size of the national overall budget, then the size of funds and resources that are going to counties must equally grow. Anything short of that was completely unacceptable to us. The only reason, and this was pointed out to him and it's mentioned in the report, that we will have maintained 370 billion going to counties is if, in follow-up to our recommendation on our report as a House on our debt management strategy as a country, is if we had cut down on our fiscal deficit. And now that they are not willing to listen, actually, if you read through this budget, the fiscal deficit actually moves by a whooping 891 billion Kenya shillings. It takes us actually close to the end of close to the ceiling, the budget, the debt ceiling that we proposed before this House. In fact, and there's reason to strongly believe so, that many keen followers of budget making process in this country are actually asking us that if you pass this BPS in the current form and state, won't you actually, by a reverse process, be raising the debt ceiling without revealing to the particular country, to the citizens of a country? Therefore, we need to be cautious about the work that you are doing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know, the reason why we speak with a lot of concern is that generally there is an agreed thinking across the breadth and space of the Republic of Kenya that as a country things have gone wrong. Yet unfortunately, we are so obsessed with all the things that don't matter about our politics, who will be the next president, how will they achieve, how can we should change the other, but not focusing on the things that matter. Mr. Speaker, we have just returned, many of us, those of us that participated in the just concluded East African Parliamentary Games. And something so curious, something actually struck my curiosity at the Namanga border. And I asked one police officer, or actually revenue officer, who was there, and they mentioned and informed me that actually the people who needs to be concerned is you, the leaders. If you come in from the Tanzanian side, you will find hundreds and hundreds of trucks that are bringing in goods into the Republic of Kenya. Yet on the side of Kenya, there is absolutely nothing. That officer actually informed me that, Senator, what you need to know is that there is only one scanner in this one border post. The scanner that belongs to the Kenyan government inspecting goods that are coming in from Tanzania. There is nothing on the Kenyan side because ideally the trucks that are going to Tanzania are going back empty. So we might be priding ourselves that, oh, we are the superpower of the region, we are still strong, our economy is bigger, reading all those information, the data that is sent from World Bank, thinking, oh, so long as we still have $100 billion worth of GDP, while the closest is Tanzania at 60-something, we are still a superpower. But up to when, Mr. Speaker? All evidence indicates that actually all the rest of the East African community countries are catching up with us. They are doing actually the trade balance for the last 2 years between us and a country like Tanzania has actually tilted in favor of Tanzania. That for the first time since independence, Tanzanians are actually selling more goods to us than we are selling to them as a country. What does it point out to, Mr. Speaker? It points out that there is something fundamentally wrong with how we are managing our economy. And if you read through this BPS, Mr. Speaker, you can clearly see that this is already a rigged document that is pointing out to a budget that is made to benefit only a few well-placed sharks and not the ordinary citizens, Mr. Speaker. If we do not do our business, and I'll give you a practical example. Just look at the proposal. You know already that in this House, Mr. Speaker, we have unconcluded business on the least medical equipment, where we continue to pay billions of Kenya shillings, you know, for facilities that are lying, Mr. Speaker. And this is an indictment to each and every one of us, the 67 of us who are in this House.
Order, member.
The fact that...
Order. Senator Aaron Cheriot, you have 11 more minutes when the motion comes up next for debate. Honorable Senators, it is now 12:30, time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until today, Tuesday, 21st December 2022 at 2:30 p.m.